Hey, how you doing? I guess this is going to end up being a vlog channel. I'm going to start with what I'm going through with Voc Rehab and advice that I got from a coworker, and it kind of goes from there. I was pretty angry with Voc Rehab, but then I kind of that kind of dwindled down. Anyway, I'll read through this thing. It'll be quite the saga, and then the saga will continue on the next video as I share more about my life and whatever's going on. Anyway, so this was a message that I had given to Voc Rehab because they wanted me to sign something, but I didn't like the way they worded something on the document. So I told them they needed to word that differently. Well, the boss wants to speak to me. Anyway, I ended up typing this. I don't know, it's the weekend right now. I don't They probably haven't received it yet, but they will tomorrow morning. But tomorrow I have to go in there to pick up something anyway. Um let's read what I gave them to read tomorrow morning. All right. Okay, so I spoke with a friend I made at work, and on one hand, he supported my position of not signing that document. But on the other hand, he also said that I need to sit back and realize something. He said I had people in my corner who may not know how to communicate without offending, and he was referring to the professionals I encountered. He also said that the moment I get loud, they will stop listening. So I need this to work yet still be accommodated, such as the Monday only rule. I still need to record Monday's meetings with my boss for my own protection, but I'll communicate what I need to without all the anger. Please consider this info before we meet. First, the document said therapy regarding executive functioning and job success. I honestly didn't know I was supposed to ask for help with executive functioning. And when I met with her, I don't think she was thinking that because of everything I was doing. She asked what I needed help with, and I honestly didn't know. They were going to send me to a group to make friends with other autistic people. I am autistic. Um, However, my job is seasonal. The new job that I got with the city for in parks maintenance. Well, as a seasonal, I'm actually just a janitor. But but if I can get permanent, then a step one is also a janitor, and then the next steps beyond that, you're doing more landscaping work. Anyway, however, my job is seasonal, thereby it has an expiration date. I've come so far from living in a car. Yeah, I was living in a car homeless for 7 months before I got into this studio apartment not that long ago. Um, so I've come so far from living in a car on the streets to now a studio apartment. If I don't find something permanent before that day comes, that is really freaking me out and has me in 100% survival mode. I've been and remained in survival mode since I became homeless, and even now, as I'm in a studio apartment, I never left survival mentality. My accommodations say time and a half on all school assignments and unlimited time on tests in an isolated room, free of distractions. It also says if I take on too much at once, I get overwhelmed. At the time I decided to discontinue, I went from living in a car to living in a shelter where I had to beat the clock and make sure I was home, from work before the sun went down. A bad neighborhood. I also had to park 2 blocks away, and there was always the risk of getting towed. That scared me. The shelter does not provide or allow parking to homeless people. I was adjusting the best I could, but the duties we had took. I mean, the duties we had took away from responsibilities related to my future. I tend to sleep past alarms if I don't go to bed early enough, and I'm working 10-hour shifts. It was all overwhelming and affecting my ability to keep it mentally organized, let alone try and figure out what was going on with the school thing because, there was issues with the login. I couldn't even start the classes that Voc Rehab had tried to put me into. Um, two specific pages in my diagnosis will explain why the mental discombobulation. I kept forgetting to do things, yet was keeping up on other stuff directly related to survival, job searching, and once I found that job, working 10 hours 4 days a week, and still job hunting and watching landscaping maintenance videos. I actually think landscaping might actually be a good fit too, along with janitorial and maintenance technician, because that's the kind of stuff that maintenance at the parks do anyway, is landscaping pretty much. My job may be janitorial, but I also help out the higher step levels sometimes. When that happens, I'm suddenly doing landscaping work until the job is done. Then I return back to my janitorial duties. But maintenance, and if you want evidence of that one, check this out. Check this out, okay? Yeah, I'm not door dashing anymore. My car is pretty much falling apart, so I'm not able to door dash. But here's my badge right there. I parks maintenance. Um, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, but may you know, but maintenance technician classes, the ones you want to set me up with, and there was a huge mix up with me even being able to get in there. Now the issue is fixed, but my cell phone hotspot isn't strong enough to support the classes, so I'm still stuck. I needed to cut things down in order to alleviate my stress. And I know the neurodivergent group that you tried to send me to facilitate joy, they are not like other autism therapists and self-identify as neurodivergent friendly, even to the point they say that they don't mention or bring up ABA therapy because it's too controversial. But they also said that after I was bringing it up by talking about the controversy surrounding it. She never mentioned anything about me needing executive functioning, but she did sit and ask what I needed help with, and I was sitting there clueless. She was about to send me to a group where I can make friends with other autistic people. But I'm still in survival mode. There was already too much, even at home, because I moved into a studio apartment, all of these events in such a short time, and the extra energy it took just to exist at the shelter when I was there, I ended up failing at keeping track of your gas thing. Yeah, they gave me a gas card. They wanted me to keep track of the logs, but everything was just so chaotic. I was like, okay, I'm returning the gas card because obviously I'm failing on the little form that they want me to do. So I just too much. um, so I ended up giving them back the gas card. Um, So all of these events in such a short time and the extra energy it took just to exist at the shelter when I was there, I ended up failing at keeping track of your gas thing, which was adding another level of anxiety that made me want to give the card back, which is what I ended up doing. Uh, so, Also, the reason my past jobs failed, like way back when, before I got diagnosed as autistic, which was 5/8/19, I went most of my adult life without, actually most of my life period without knowing I was autistic. Anyway, also the reason my past jobs failed is because I was working the wrong jobs that are not compatible with with my neurology, and I also didn't have the diagnosis with the accommodations that I needed to let me know what jobs would be more compatible. So yeah, I it really kind of did a number on my whole ability to succeed. Um, um, so um, So also the reason my past jobs failed is because I was working the wrong jobs. If I find a job compatible with my accommodations, I'm less likely to need any accommodations. We'll go over that when we meet Monday and I have my diagnosis with me. But they're jobs but there are jobs where I really don't function, like fast food, because there's so much going on at once and my brain just the my brain process is slow. It's difficult for me to function in those kind of environments without everybody getting pissed off with me for for not going fast enough. Um, so but there are jobs where I really don't function. It's about going with compatible occupations. And the call now here's one because in the city truck I have to drive from park to park, and when they call, usually I'm like on the actual road when they're trying to do their little questionnaire thing, like, how's your experience been with Voc Rehab? And they want to ask a series of questions. Uh, I'm on the clock and I'm also driving, and that's dangerous because okay, so in a classroom, I'm not capable of listening and writing at the same time. So I need either a note taker, which I don't like the idea of, or B, a voice recorder, which I much rather prefer because then I can just record what the teacher is saying while I just focus on jotting down whatever I see on the board. Then after the class, I can review what the voice recorder recorded on my own time, which is far better because I'm not capable of listening and writing at the same time. This is also why, this is also why anytime I'm driving, nobody is allowed to have a conversation with me while I'm behind the wheel. Not at all. Not at fuck all. Too dangerous. And when you call, it interrupts the GPS, and I rely on the GPS far more so than most people. Um, Part of my wiring is I really have no sense of direction whatsoever without a GPS. You interrupt that GPS, I have no choice but to pull over. And if you're really catching me off guard, you're liable to cause an accident by doing that to me. Um, I always pull over and yeah, there's pretty much because the workday, because I'm always driving at work and I need rely on the GPS, and the GPS is on my phone. For that reason, nobody is allowed to call me when I'm at work, not for any reason. Not unless you're one of my coworkers and you need me to, but even then I usually have them text rather than call. So even they're doing that. Um so so right here. And the calling while on the clock, but even my coworkers will text rather than call. That's where I mentioned that. And because of everything combined, I knew I needed to focus on a career life, which means school once I have strong and enough internet, which means school once I have a strong enough internet, job hunting, since my position with the city is a seasonal and therefore temporary, and doing the best job I can 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. My boss and coworkers seem to like me, even though you guys must harbor a different opinion. You might not be allowed to mention or admit to. It's only human psychology. What people encounter in that moment is what sticks with them. Everything I had been doing in such a short time, appointments with Employee V, Voc Rehab, door dashing, taking care of a dog that I had to surrender in order to continue my job search. Yeah, Idlewild Park. I ended up going to a job fair on Labor Day over there. And but like I my the dog that I had at the time, she loves people, but oh my God, she was viciously aggressive towards any other dog that was merely in sight. And people bring their dogs into Idlewild all the time, even at the job fairs. I mean, like I had no choice. I was still homeless at the time, looking for work. I had nowhere else to put her other than make sure the windows are rolled, have her in my car. Well, I'm trying to look at the careers at the job fair and try to get some employment going on for me. Well, suddenly while I'm checking out the booths and the jobs, here comes a phone call and it's animal control, and immediately I drop what I'm doing and I'm running to my car. Animal control had me blocked in, and they told me that, they told me that the next time because prior to that they had visited me for leaving my dog in the car before because I had nowhere else to put her, and they had been pretty lenient with me thus far, but Idlewild, this was the time where they actually said, that in the middle of summer, leaving a dog in a car, even if the windows are down, you got the food and the water, you did good. But if we're called and we see this again, you will be charged with a criminal misdemeanor, is what they told me. So that's why I ended up surrendering her to the shelter, because I'm trying to look for employment. I'm trying to better myself. I don't need a criminal record to, to make things worse, So I gave her up. I surrendered her to the shelter. Yeah, so taking care of a dog that I had to surrender in order to continue my job search, eventually working for the city, but now my car is falling apart, um, which means I can't DoorDash, and my job has a seasonal expiration date. Taking a bus would be close to 2 hours, getting there, 2 hours back. That is a huge part of the day. And I have so much I need to be doing. That's the survival self-talking. And I'm talking about like therapy visits on that one, autism therapy. They wanted me to go to Facilitate Joy, um, which is fine. Facilitate Joy probably would have been one of the better ones because they're actually ran by neurodivergent people. Um, and even they admit that ABA is controversial. Anyway, already being overwhelmed as it is, I figured Facilitate Joy wasn't really necessary for employment. And everything was not going as planned with Sunshine Service. They told me they hadn't been paid after you guys said they were, and I did overreact. I am still in survival mode. I really was taking on and doing a lot, even when I first walked through your doors. Also, making friends is going to take away from responsibilities. I need to keep up on my own survival in the future. To label it as much needed therapy is delusional when you consider the immediate reality that needs more focus. It also puts me in a rebellious light because I'm somehow refusing something that would benefit me on the job. Yet that's not what they were going to do. It's not what they were wanting to do. So most people believe stereotypes regarding autism. And there is a reason that most of the professional mental health field are still believing stereotypes. It's only recently they started studying adults, which is why the better ones are all about autistic people making friends with other autistic people in a group while the therapist studies and observes. That's pretty much what Facilitate Joy was going to be. They started looking at they started looking at adults since 2013 when the new DSM-5 came out. So, autism therapy. Now, what is that? So, ABA therapy or applied behavioral analysis therapy is what's used for autistic children, even to this day. Though in the recent 15 years, they did away with electroshock and rewards and punishment approach. But the therapy continues, even though it's been modified to take it more, yeah, it's been modified to make it more humane. Sometimes they'll try it on adults, but usually children are the targets. ABA therapy was developed by Dr. Olivar Lovas. He was heavily involved with conversion therapy for gay people and did did base much of ABA on conversion therapy. Lovas pioneered his invention of ABA therapy in the 1960s, aiming to make autistic children indistinguishable from their peers through reinforcement and punishment. At the same time, Lovas collaborated with Dr. George Reckers and Robert Koegel on the development of gay conversion therapy, which sought to modify children's sex roles behaviors to align with heterosexual norms. Much the same way they targeted even the arbitrary autistic traits to make us behave more like neurotypicals, so we don't seem weird. Except it actually backfires. Mentally speaking, both ABA and conversion therapy relied on behaviorist principles, modifying modifying an arbitrary behavior like eye contact and solitude with forced socialization, reinforcement, and punishments like slaps and shocks to suppress behaviors deemed socially unacceptable. Using usually eye contact and being more social were the key issues. Scholarship and advocacy groups argue that ABA was essentially designed as a form of conversion therapy for autism, paralleling the same logic used to convert gay children, and the Lovas Institute itself has, in recent decades, issued a statement regretting Lovas's role in supporting Recker's assertion on modifying deviant sexual behavior, acknowledging it is an inappropriate extension of ABA. Psychologist in Carson City tried to do this kind of therapy with me. Modern ABA does differ from the original Lovas version. The focus now is on social skills, building with communication, daily living, and social skills, which tend to look patronizing when viewing the material. Um, Stereotyping as they misunderstand stuff too. I'm not laughing, I mean, think about it this way, okay? They'll try to make a big deal about how you need to start laughing at other people's jokes, and I keep trying to tell them I didn't even know they were joking, and I don't have osmosis, and I have a hard time reading people anyway. Anyway, I put in here, I'm not laughing at someone's joke because I somehow don't think it's funny. I just didn't know that it was a joke. And I don't have osmosis, and also the therapy is violating as we are sent into social situations we are not comfortable with just to do things in that social situation, and it's anxiety ridden. They now use positive reinforcements instead of punishments, like a good dog receiving a milk bone. Physical punishments are no longer seen as ethical or acceptable. Programs tailored to each child's need or autistic person, since I'm not a child, often incorporating play-based and naturalistic teaching methods. ABA is sometimes combined with speech therapy. I speak fine, and not all autistic people are going to need that. Occupational therapy, I work fine without therapy, enough to impress my boss and coworkers, as long as I work jobs compatible with my neurology, so I won't need to be accommodated at work so much. That's not something occupational therapy can help with. This is more to do with me needing to already know what jobs I can actually do and which ones I really can't to avoid future failures. They also do developmental approaches. Professional organizations like the Behavioral Analysis Certification Board now emphasizes consent, dignity, and minimizing harm. Though the dignity part, they still need a lot more work on it. Many autistic adults argue that even modern ABA can be compliance focused, discouraging self expression and reinforcing masking rather than acceptance, and have described ABA therapy as conversion therapy combined with dog training techniques. Positive reinforcement, good dog, that's a good boy. And that's the only exclusively autistic therapy that even exists at all. Also, and by the way, no, they're not really going, good job, good boy. That's not what they're doing. But I mean, they might as well be. I mean, when they're like, yeah, good job. I mean, what else am I supposed to equate that to? Like, okay. Anyway, also, Austrian pediatrician Dr. Hans Asperger did extensive studies and observation with autistic children. His work is still used and reinforced to this day by the psychological fields here in America and abroad. And he even got Asperger's syndrome named after him. He was also a member of the Austrian wing of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which legitimately made Hans Asperger a Nazi. And he sent hundreds of autistic children to their deaths during the Holocaust. It was during the Holocaust, while he was deciding which autistic children would be spared and which would need to be exterminated, this is when he did most of the study, which is still used to this day, even by the American psychological field with a diagnosis named after him, yet he's also a murderous monster who sent hundreds of autistic children to their deaths. The discovery of Grunya Sukareva's work in the early millennium led to changes in the DSM-5 regarding autism in 2013, and her work was almost lost to history because it was a woman that wrote it, even though Dr. Sukareva was in fact a child psychiatrist. Studies have only ever been done on children, and they really don't have anything effective for adults. And a simple look at a diagnosis combined with the stories of being gaslit out of needed help and stereotyped into unnecessary help that makes things worse, it's because most professionals still believe stereotypes and what knowledge we have is stunted. This is, also they don't ever read the diagnosis, which has test results specific to the individual autistic. And so when you're going off textbook knowledge which is generalized that you graduate with, and you're not even looking at the test results specific to the individual, then you've pretty much made it eminent. You're going to stereotype that person, even as a professional. You don't know that you're going to, but you're going to. I mean, you may think, oh, I already went to school and that's going to take too much time and and I got other patients. Yeah, but if you don't take the time to read through all those pages before meeting with that autistic person, the chances of you stereotyping that autistic patient is definite, imminent. It's going to happen, and it's at your fault for not reading the damn diagnosis. So, this is all why you really should change the wording on that document form. They don't have anything necessary, you know, well, anyway, this is why you really should change the wording on that document form. They don't have anything necessary. And no, that doesn't make me any less disabled. And to frame it as rejecting much needed therapy when really I'm reducing stress levels by discontinuing what is not so necessary, I really need you to change the wording before I can sign that document. This also doesn't make me any less autistic. The testing for the diagnosis as an adult included, this was the testing I went through, the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scales 4, the Daplis-Kaplan Test of Executive Functioning Selected Subtests, the Wisconsin Card Sorting Test, the Boston Naming Test, the Dean Woodcock Sensory Motor Battery Selected Subtests, the Ray Complex Figures Test Standard Administrations, the California Verbal Learning Test CVLT-3 Standard Administration, the Continuous Performance Test Standard Administration, finger tapping test, the groove pegboard test, the dynamometer, the Gilliam Autism Rating Scale 3, the Wide Range Achievement Test 5 selected subtests. This was all a day and a half. This was all like a day and a half worth of testing. Not to Okay, so this is all the testing. You can go ahead and pause as I scroll down slowly and just kind of look through it yourself. Mention the interviews with me and my mom, both together and separate, along with questionnaires up the wazoo. We both had to fill out separately. And all my school files from K to 12, she was able to access and review through. I was in special ed, by the way, just letting you know. This, back in grade school talking about. Anyway, this was all several hours of work she did with us over the span of a few days. This makes anyone's autism diagnosis far less likely to be a misdiagnosis, even if they don't fit your stereotype. The ignorant comment, you don't look autistic, when that is not how autism works. It can look like a lot of different things, and the help needed will be different with each individual autistic person. There is no standard rule of thumb in that regard. And yes, I am autistic. I'm also 43 years old. If you start talking to me like this, you talk to me like that, I'm not gonna like you at all. I'll probably resent you. Anyway, I'm your equal. Don't forget that. So, Let me show you the seven traits they look for, which are split up into two sections. The diagnosis labels these seven traits as deficits. I'm going to change the word deficit to difficulties for a good reason. These would be the seven traits that you have to meet right here in order to get the diagnosis right here. And I'm going to do this. Number one, difficulties in social emotional reciprocity. Sometimes people are joking, but I don't realize it's a joke. I'm weird for not laughing, but I never knew a joke was made by that. My brain wants to process literally, and I often miss what was meant. And when I'm not sure how to respond or whatever nonverbal cue I'm having a hard time interpreting, I simply won't. Number two, okay, difficulties in nonverbal communicative behaviors. This is the main reason I've never known what it's like to be in a relationship with anyone at all, even at the age of 45. And no, I do not identify as a damn incel. Those people are stupid, okay? I have social deficits. I'm not blaming an entire gender demographic just because I have social deficits. I think those dipshits, that's what they're doing. The only reason a person can have that much difficulty is they most likely have social deficits they're not owning up to. That's my opinion in that regard. But don't you blame an entire demographic just because of your deficits or difficulties or whatever. Look, I've seen couples together that really shouldn't have been together. Okay, human attraction is not as rigid as what you're conspiring, and most of you aren't even going out of your homes to see it in reality. I'm out there every day at the fucking parks, so I see it every day. And when I was homeless, I was continuously all around every day on the move because it's illegal to loiter. Believe me, I saw plenty of people together that I honestly thought shouldn't have been together because they looked out of each other's leagues, or they looked like, hey, but human attraction is not rigid and like in place. So like your whole like kindergarten drawing of Chad and the preschool lines and the made up dot to dot. Yeah, dude, throw that in the fucking garbage. You're all a bunch of dumb fucks. Um, seriously. Anyway, I don't identify as that. I have deficits that I'm kind of relabeling here as difficulties. But anyway, I don't blame an entire gender demographic just because I have difficulties with this, and I want that perfectly clear. So do not call me an incel. I will get pissed with you about that. Okay, I will get pissed. I don't identify as that. Um, Difficulties in nonverbal communicative behaviors is the main reason I've never known what it's like to be in a relationship with anyone at all, even at the age of 45. And I'm gaslit out of needed help because they want to laugh and think I'm pulling one over on them, when I talk to therapists. They also say I'm too old for that, too old to learn how to read cues and develop a relationship with someone, even if it is a romantic one. Some of us have chronic struggles in that department, where which chronic long term lead can lead to suicidal thoughts because it makes you believe on a very deep and ingrained level that you honestly don't deserve anyone in your life, nor will you ever. And that's again not at the fault of the gender demographic. That's the fault of, hey, I've got difficulties and deficits, and unless a person knows I'm autistic, they're not going to understand that on the offset. So anyway, um, because it makes you, yeah. And yes, I've had to battle that mindset for years, my whole life. Okay, so number three, difficulties in maintaining relationships. People often think I'm weird for reasons people already explained above. It's hard to gain the trust of people unless they get to know you first, but or know me first. Um, but even the difficulties above will make them want to hang out with will make them not want to hang out with you as much. Yeah, I do run into that one. You know, yeah, I have no problem meeting people. They just don't want to hang out with me all that much. Um, but they're cordial. At least they're cordial. Um, remaining distant, cordial, and I'm stereotyped as a normal person because I don't look autistic to them, even though that's not how autism works. The autistic person must have all three of the above traits in order to meet the diagnosis. If you only meet one, you will not get the autism diagnosis. The next four, you only need to meet two of the following to be diagnosed as autistic. That's why autism can look like a lot of different things. So, four, stereotyped motor movements. I don't have that one. Five, insistence on sameness and rigidity. Yes, I do have that, and that's another reason all these recent changes have been so hard on me. Predictability is where I thrive, and I haven't had predictability since over 7 months ago. And you'll see what how this has affected me later on as I read this. Um, stereotype motor movements, I don't have that one. Five, insistence on sameness and rigidity. Yes. And that's another reason all the recent changes have been so hard on me. Predictability is where I thrive. Six, fixed interests. And yes, I do like, okay, so yes, fixed interests. I don't like the music everyone else listens to. Mine is not mainstream, and it's weird. Steampunk, electro swing, psychobilly, dark cabaret, neoclassical. Can't really say that I like rap so much. I don't like what most people listen to. I hate sports with a passion because it's too damn boring, but I love documentaries. My recreational differences and slash interests make it difficult for most to bond with me because I have nothing in common with anyone, and I also tend to either keep to myself if I can't isolate, or now that I am in a place, now I'm isolating a lot. Um, when I'm not working or not taking care of responsibilities, it's just back here, this one room studio apartment. Um, anyway, seven, hyper or hypoactivity to sensory input. Yes, I do have sensory issues. I can't be in the rain without something on my head because the rain without a hat is too intense of a sensation. I have to run for cover. I have to run for the cover of a roof somewhere. When wearing a hat, it's not that bad. I'm also light and sound sensitive, and when I was a baby, I would cry anytime someone sneezed. Um, I met 6 out of 7 traits on this diagnosis, and you really only need to beat 5 out of the 7. This makes me pretty damn autistic, yet I'm labeled as high functioning and don't seem disabled by most people. This is because the severity of the traits matter too, not just if you meet them or not, which means you can have two autistic people both meeting all 7, making them both very autistic. Yet, if one is labeled as low functioning and the other is labeled as high functioning, then the traits are going to be more extreme in one versus the others, yet both are still very autistic, meeting all 7 of the traits. The spectrum is not linear as most people, including professionals, seem to think. Um, One time, I had a psychiatrist tell me that my autism was limited to. I simply won't know if people are tired of listening to me when okay, so when you look at what you have, all the criteria you have to meet to just even get the diagnosis at all. Okay, so this time I'm going to start with the testing that I went through all over again, and I'm slowly scrolling down, all the way down. I'm even going to catch not only all this testing, but I'm also going to go ahead and get the traits that you have to meet all the way down through the conclusions, recommendations, accommodations. You're even going to see that too here in a bit. Um, and all the way down to the signatures. You're going to see it all clear down to the signatures. The whole, well, not the whole thing because I didn't start at the beginning, but you'll see from the testing all the way down through clear to the signatures. With the testing, the questionnaires and everything, and then the traits you have to meet. Okay, when you consider all that, it's actually pretty impossible for anyone's autism diagnosis to only be limited to not knowing when to shut up. Like I said, most professionals still believe stereotypes. You need to consider all this before you start putting it down that I'm somehow rejecting much needed therapy. I can't sign that form the way it is. And the labeling system really should change from high functioning, medium functioning, and low functioning to to verbal, selected verbal, and nonverbal autism. I have an article saved that was written by someone labeled as low functioning, and he obviously had intelligence that was not visibly seen, being labeled as low functioning, or else how do you think he wrote the article if there wasn't something going on upstairs? I'll show you the article Monday. Okay, so the article's kind of a digital form. You know what? I'll take a snapshot and add it to the video when I go to edit. Okay, here it is. The let's kind of scroll in here a bit, but this is the article, and so this is news and knowledge, an article written by the author about the author. Lisa Ray's son Philip has nonverbal autism but can communicate with others by typing. He wrote this essay. This is the article I'm talking about. He wrote this essay in response to the question, what do you want people to be aware of on Autism Awareness Day? He keeps a blog where he describes his experience living with autism and clears up common misconceptions. Um, and anyway, um, he titled it, I Have Nonverbal Autism. Here's what I want you to know. This was an essay he wrote that got published as an article. And it was published on let's see, Organization for Autism Research. So this is where you can find the article, news and knowledge, and yeah, and it's Philip Ray's. Um, Here, I'll just scroll slowly so you can read it from my screen. Otherwise, this is where you can go to look for it yourself. Just kind of pause as you need to so that you can read the whole thing. And I'll bet you anything you probably have all of it now with the very slow scrolling I just did. So that is the entire article. Okay, so the functioning labels are the functioning labels really are offensive. We also get our experiences unintentionally gaslit even the most well-intended therapists, again because of stereotypes, and they never read the diagnosis. They go off the general information they graduated learning, missing the fact that there's specific results that would help them to not stereotype you if they just read it before reading with you, but they never do. And then they always end up stereotyping because of that. Um, so, you know, so yeah, we get gaslit even by the most well-intended therapists, again, because of stereotypes. Our stories don't sound right based on the stereotypes they unknowingly believe. But you should also notice that those seven traits really are personality traits, which means it's just how we are wired rather than a disease or illness. Traits are just who we are as people, making genetics far more likely than an external cause. But because the world does not accommodate our wiring, we end up disabled by our environment, but still disabled, but not retarded. On page 15 in my diagnosis, it says academically, Levi was functional in both reading and math. He was average on a measure of word reading and low average on measure of basic calculation. He did not have a learning disability in either area, just a weakness in math. Verbally, Levi had some variability. He was average on a measure of vocabulary and verbal reasoning. He was average for verbal working memory, but was low average at encoding verbal information into memory when it was in a form of a list. This was true even with repetition. He had issues with confrontational naming. This can cause a person to use too many words to get their point across. Levi was high average on a measure looking at his ability to see patterns. He was high average on a visual spatial measure. He did well on the measure of visual motor integration. The frontal lobe regulates executive functioning. Executive functions are the ability to reason, sustain attention, inhibit, organize, transition, and control emotions. He was variable in this area. He had good reasoning and could benefit from feedback when things were not emotional. But this would change to the opposite in moments when emotions are high and things are not going as planned. He had good sequencing, but was very slow at these tasks. He did well on a test of inhibition that involved interaction. He had significant issues sustaining and inhibiting when working independently. Overall, Levi does demonstrate a mild executive functioning profile. Okay, so right here, people with a mild executive functioning profile can do well when things are not stressful, go as predicted, and are not emotional. When things are emotional, they will have issues seeing long term and becoming emotional in an impulsive manner. This would be consistent with Levi. He falls apart when things don't go as planned and has issues moving forward. So when I start cutting things down because it's too much, overwhelming, and I'm trying to figure out, and they're trying to make me look like I'm just being rebellious when no, that's not what I'm doing. And I mean, they're even thinking that I'm not doing much. The fuck I'm not working 10 hours trying. It's like, golly, anyway, I mean, I don't know. You know, it's like I get unglued and even though it is difficult for me to move forward, I still have been and trying to manage all this the best I can, even though it's been hard. Anyway, Levi has a history of major depressive episodes. Yeah, there have been a couple times where I was suicidal in my past, not these days, but I've been there before. Um, he has only mild symptoms right now. He has some mixed features in that he acts out and becomes emotional. Levi has a history of anxiety and OCD features or obsessive compulsive disorder features. He does meet the diagnosis of social anxiety. He becomes very tense in these settings. He also has a very mild form of OCD. The one question is whether Levi has an autism spectrum disorder. There are three main neuropsychological profiles. He does have issues with the frontal lobe. He was good with the cerebellum on the visual motor integration task, though. His mother did rate him as significant on the Gilliam Autism Rating Scale. Then you have to look at the diagnosis. This involves the following. Number one, must have all the three following. Deficits in social emotional reciprocity, yes. Deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors, yes. Deficits in maintaining relationships, yes. Must have at least the two of the following: stereotype motor movements, no. Insistence on sameness and rigidity, yes. Fixed interest, yes. Hyper or hypoactivity to sensory input, yes. Levi does meet the criteria for this diagnosis. He appeared to have met the diagnosis when he was younger, based on the past records as well. This was not frequently diagnosed when he was younger. So it is not surprising that he did not receive the diagnosis before this. Overall, Levi does meet the autism diagnosis. This has caused issues with his ability to maintain employment because I kept going for jobs incompatible with my neurological wiring and to remain functional as an adult. He could benefit from treatment for this, but when I bring this up, I'm always gaslit because I don't seem to need it on the surface in the 40 minutes the professional is seeing me without ever reading my diagnosis. Even executive functioning, they'll end up ruling out because of how I am when things are calm and not emotional. They also don't take into consideration that some of us have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of profiles, like me. I'm what I've been describing here, wouldn't you call that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? I mean, that's pretty much what I am. Um, so what help what help you were wanting for me that you put on a document regarding executive functioning, not only is that not what they were thinking, there is no way they would have suggested it. I would have needed to specifically ask for it, but nobody told me to. All I knew was to say I am autistic and that Voc Rehab wanted me to seek therapy, which is all vague, but I didn't know any better, and I don't have osmosis, and I'm not a mind reader, and not every autistic person is going to need the same kind of therapy or even help for that matter anyway. But I already have too much on my plate as it is. I already have too much on my plate as it is, and have been feeling overwhelmed. And usually, when I do get specific with the kind of therapy I need, they say, no, you're too high functioning. And that is every time without fail from my experience, and convincing them otherwise is very difficult. They even resist reading the actual diagnosis, thinking they don't need to because they already went to school, not taking into consideration that the test results are specific to each individual autistic person, and that if you go off generalized textbook info without looking at the individual's test results like they always do, and there's also a brief historical summary because they're always asking me questions that I already know damn well are answered in the historical summary of my diagnosis. There is no reason you should be asking me anything that I already know is in that diagnosis. If Okay, since the historical summary is near the very beginning of the diagnosis, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down so you can see the beginning of the diagnosis clear until I end it where it starts with all the testing that you've already seen. Yeah, so, and if you go, So yeah, generalized textbooks info without looking at the individual's test results, like they always do. Then your chances of getting stereotyped and given the wrong treatment that might actually patronize at best or psychologically harm at worst are going to be eminent, even at the hands of the most well-meant therapists. Every therapist back when I was asking for specific help kept saying, "But you're high functioning," gaslighting me out of my requests, not realizing that I was requesting something that even my 18-page diagnosis addresses, but they never read the actual diagnosis. And all it would really take is them taking the time to read it thoroughly, because all of the test results, historical summary, and conclusions that are all specific to the individual, and um, that alone would prevent most professionals from ever stereotyping us within a 40-minute sit down, but they never read the diagnosis and make their opinions based on a 40-minute talk. This is why we get stereotyped and gaslit. What the autistic community needs is a mass re-education. Okay, that's what the autistic community needs, a mass re-education, but that's not going to happen without a class action lawsuit, which the autistic community really does desperately need a class action lawsuit to bring about the mass re-education. Um, because it would put an end to a lot of what we face regularly, not just by professionals, but also even with the general public. Yeah, it would put a stop to a lot of it because then people would start knowing better, unlike right now where nobody knows any better. Um, I'm actively trying to look for reasons to get one started, the class action, to free me and others like me from these stereotypes and discrimination once and for all. And most professionals don't ever take into consideration that I am a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality profile and might need help for that. But because of generalized textbook information and a 40-minute sit down, I'm even gaslit out of that. They don't ever read the actual diagnosis, and that's always the problem. Also, I have sleep issues. I sleep past alarms unless I go to bed uber early. That's how I wake up at 3 a.m. for work each morning. This leaves only a few hours, 1 hour to walk home, only 2 hours of eating and getting ready for bed if I'm actually going to be up by 3 a.m. That's why I can't receive phone calls Tuesday through Friday. And there is nothing I can do about it. It just nothing I can do about it. It just needs to be accommodated. Plus, receiving phone calls while I'm driving interrupts my GPS, which I rely on far more so because I have no sense of direction without the GPS. And once interrupted, that's very dangerous if I'm driving. And I have no choice but to pull over. And I drive from park to park a lot each day at work in a city truck that doesn't even belong to me. When I first started, I was only cleaning up to 6 parks a day. We're wor Working with me to build up my speed, like my accommodations say to do. They now have me taking on 9 to sometimes even 11 parks in a day. And my boss is telling me I'm kicking ass, and my coworkers like me as far as I know. Um, So all that driving makes anyone's phone call at all lethally dangerous. Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays are the only days I can take care of all other stuff that are not related to work and sleep. And because of my wiring, I have to be strict about this because I'm accommodating myself. Um, I wrote, let me read to you something I did prior to that. So I wrote to you a whole thing that I sent to Voc Rehab. And now I'm going to start with something that came before that long-winded something. Okay. Check this out. So yeah, so she told me I had something to pick up, gave me a DocuSign, which, listed, hold on, let me look at the email before I read this part because let me go back to that because this will kind of fill you in on a little bit more. So we'll just kind of scroll down a bit because yeah, the way it's worded, now I'm pulling up the docu. Email link has expired, so I won't be able to read it. Okay, so anyway, I'll just read to you my response to her regarding it. So, thank you. So yeah, I took a pic of the bus pass form after signing it, but the DocuSign email I have issues with. It was right to mention the discontinuation of Facilitate Joy, benefit from executive functioning and social skills. Well, at the time when I called it delusional, I actually hadn't looked up the definition of executive functioning. I was thinking it was like, getting things done. Actually, it's also kind of like emotional control. And now I'm thinking, you know what? I probably shouldn't have worded that text that way. Anyway, but I'm gaslit by professionals anyway. You know, but anyway, I guess the delusion would be, I guess the real delusion would have been expecting them to actually give me that therapy. That would have been the delusion. Um, but anyway, because at Max, they were wanting to teach me about my own autism, which I already spent years studying since I got diagnosed 5819, and get me into a group to meet other autistic people. I'm trying to get my life together. I have no time for that bullshit. Plus, all studies have been on children, never adults. There's no such thing as autism therapy for adults. They are just now studying us since 2013 when the new DSM-5 came out. Plus, my diagnosis is evidence that I'm often stereotyped and gaslit by every professional I come across. I am, I really am. It's because they don't read the diagnosis before meeting with the autistic person. So, and the way they put it is like I was rejecting needed therapy needed therapy related to executive functioning for employment purposes. And not only is that not what they were going to do, but but then to say that's what I was rejecting when that's not what I was rejecting. And also the word rejecting, it really puts me in a rebellious light. It makes it look like I'm just being a stinker with them, that there was just no rhyme or reason behind anything. I'm just putting a bad light. And yeah, legally I can't let that take place on a document. No, especially with everything that's been going on. Um, So, so I said, either change what it says on the form so it doesn't look like I'm somehow rejecting needed therapy, when that's absurd because, making friends that are also autistic is not needed therapy, and they weren't going to give me executive functioning anything because, um, they weren't even thinking that, and that's not what they were wanting to give me. They were telling me, "Well, what do you want?" And I was just there clueless. It wasn't really my idea to be there. I was just there because I was doing as I was told by Voc Rehab. Check. Yeah, so it doesn't look like I'm somehow, yeah, either change what it says on the form so it doesn't look like I'm somehow rejecting needed therapy when that's absurd, or I'm not signing that one at all. Just so you know, the way you have that part worded in the DocuSign, I am more than willing to take you guys to court over it. So change it, or else I'm not signing that one at all. Um, yeah, we do desperately need a class action. We desperately, desperately do. Though I really have no filter, and I'm starting to think that I made a mistake by sending that message when I did. Like, seriously, if I really want that class action, do I honestly think telling these people that that's what I'm wanting eventually, I'm less likely to get any appointments with anybody because, it's this the human nature of self-preservation. Nobody wants to put themselves in harm's way. And by telling them what my intent is to be eventually, it's yeah, they're not going to want to take me on as a client after knowing that. Um, so at the very least, the bus pass form has been signed. I took a pic. You should already have it in there. Just scroll up. So thank you, Levi. We got the signed bus pass form, letting you know, come Monday, my supervisor wants to talk to you about your Voc rehab case. Okay, so basically, like I was making that decision on the DocuSign. So right there, thank you, Levi. We got the signed bus pass form, letting you know when you come in Monday, my supervisor wants to talk to you about your Voc rehab case. Okay. And then my response to that is, I'll be there with my 18-page diagnosis just in case, along with the research and info that I have regarding autism, and I'll be recording the encounter. My constitutional right, nobody has a right not to be recorded, not constitutionally. Also, nobody asks anybody if they want to be captured by surveillance cameras, which is more proof that nobody has a right not to be recorded. Plus, for a case like mine, I want to make sure I have footage. It's for my own protection. I will gladly meet your boss. And then that's when I pretty much did that whole long thing that I just wrote to you guys about. Anyway, that was the whole spiel going on with the Voc Rehab. So I think this is going to be a vlog channel, and things going on in my life, hectic or not, whatever. I think that's pretty much what I'm doing with this. Also, um, you need to have a certain number of subscribers before YouTube will start letting you monetize your videos. And so, like, I know this video is kind of free. I'm not going to get paid for this, at least not yet, until I get enough subscribers to start monetizing. But then that also means there's a lot of work I'm putting into this video that I'm just making for free for you guys to watch for free. Um, so like, in the meantime, while I'm trying to get my life together and I don't have enough subscribers to really monetize anything, maybe consider giving me a donation to my Cash App. It'd be much appreciated. Definitely going to go to making more videos, and it's also going to help me with everything I'm doing, trying to put my life together and move forward. Plus, it would be kind of courteous because I don't have to make material that you would actually be interested in watching. I mean, this is work that I'm doing. It's, work that I'm putting in. It may not be strenuous work. It sure as hell ain't the work that I'm doing for the city. Now that's work. um, you know, but this is still work. Nevertheless, this is still work that I'm doing for free, and you guys are enjoying for free. So consider giving to my Cash App. All right. Okay. So, I think I need to also explain something else. You already know I was homeless. I already went through that. And then I'm autistic. And then everything I'm going through, the progression I've made, I'm in this place now. And my fight to move forward, even though everything has me falling apart on the inside. Um, I wanted to explain something else to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background. Um, so I was actually living with my mom prior to all of this. And then my mom died, and I ended up living in my car. At the time, I had no clue that I would end up losing all my benefits because I really had no. Okay, so basically, what happened is once I ended up in my car, um, I had a setup that I had to financially keep up on. Okay, well, the gym is where I was taking showers every day. The truck stop is where I was parking to sleep at night. Waking up uber early in the morning because when you're in a situation like that, you want to do as many things as you can in a day, each and every day, to try to get something going because it's not a good situation to be in. But anyway, I had the gym membership. I was parking at the truck stop to sleep. I was also had a UPS mailbox, so I had a gym membership, a UPS mailbox. Um, I also that I was paying for. Cell phone I was paying for. Um, let's see. Then there was also the car insurance because I was keeping up on that. And Oh, what was the other one? Storage rent. Storage rent. Because when my mom died, I lived in my car. I had no place to I had no place to keep my stuff. I had to get a storage unit so that I wouldn't lose all my stuff. Um, and anyway, so I was having to keep up on all of that, and all of that combined ended up taking my almost $1,000 a month I get from Social Security, leaving me with jack nothing at fuck all. And that was each and every month. So I really had no choice but to DoorDash. And because of the price of everything, I really had no choice but to DoorDash more than what Social Security would allow me to earn, which is bad. Um, and so because that's exactly what I did. And then when welfare wanted me to reapply to renew things with them for the year, I couldn't because they're going to ask for bank statements. I didn't want that shit going to Social Security to lose the check so quick, so I ended up letting go of the state benefits in order to save the monthly check. Um, Now I found a job, great. That means I'm definitely losing all my benefits now because I'm definitely making more than what Social Security will allow. Here's the thing, you can earn money while being on Social Security, but okay, if you're getting a monthly check, you're only going to be able to earn up to $1,000 in a month. That's it. Okay. And that's it. They were only giving me 1,000 and telling me I'm only allowed to earn up to 1,000 in a month. That's it. And then I'm not allowed to earn anything else. That's not a lot of money. That's actually forced poverty against one's will, by the way. However, if you apply for Ticket to Work, you can go through it. If you get approved and you get things going through for Ticket to Work, that's something completely different. Ticket to Work will allow you to keep will allow you to keep your medical benefits, but you won't get a monthly check. You will be allowed to make however much you will be allowed to make however much you want. No limits whatsoever. Whatever you want to make, you'll be able to make it. You'll be allowed to, but you will not get any kind of a monthly check whatsoever. That is the one thing you'll have to sacrifice if you want to go the Ticket to Work route. Otherwise, if you don't want to do Ticket to Work and you still want to collect that monthly check, you have no choice but to only earn up to 1,000. That's it, and you're never allowed to earn any more than that within a month, each and every month. So that's forced poverty against one's will. Anyway, the thing is because homelessness happened, I have to get things going now. This is, it is urgent. It is an emergency. My life can't wait for the dragging, slow process of the government to get things through. So, like, I had to do what I had to do just to survive and live. My benefits are at jeopardy, but there was also no choice that I had in the matter, and I don't have time to go through the proper processes. I didn't have enough time. Hell, I was living in a car on the streets. Um, and yeah, well, anyway, um, here's the thing. When the state benefits left, I didn't lose the monthly check per se, but what did happen is I lost all the state benefits. So now the price for Medicare is coming out of the monthly check. Okay. So that's what's happening now. So I'm not even getting my full check anymore. I'm not even getting my full check anymore. And so, but come tax period, when I do my taxes, that's going to be the next step because once Social Security finds out, I've already lost all benefits, all benefits. Um, when I got the job for the city, I already knew the benefits were going to go eventually because I'd already been door dashing too much, more than the government would ever allow me. Um, Before I became homeless living in my car, I had no clue that I would ever be in this situation. No fucking clue. Um, anyway, I just figured you'd want that little background, but yeah, benefits are going to be going for sure. I'm Yeah, also that step one position I applied for. Oh, great. Yeah, I didn't get it. But here, let me read you the email. Let me read the email. Um, it says, thank you for your interest in the city of, I'm not telling you guys where I live, and for taking the time to apply for the parks maintenance work one position. After a thorough review, it was concluded that the information on your application did not demonstrate that you meet the required minimum qualification for work experience. We encourage you to continue to check for new job openings at our website at www dot, I can't tell you that address because it has the name of the city I live in it, and apply for any positions that fit your interests and qualifications. Once again, thank you for your interest in joining our team, and we wish you continued success in your career journey. Civil Service Commission, City of, I'm not letting you guys know where I live. Um, uh, anyway, um, so yeah, basically, basically what told me, he says, don't let that discourage me. Basically, what it is usually most people that end up as a step one, step two, they were a seasonal a few times before they got into a permanent position of some sort. So he says most likely what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to keep applying and be a seasonal a few more times before they'll consider me for a permanent position. So I would also like to point out that um, because autism does make me weird, most people who are autistic tend to be told that they are weird by others. I'm no exception. Um, for that reason, I actually do get offended when I hear another person use the word weird in and of itself as though it's such a bad thing to arbitrarily be. I think there needs to be a lot more acceptance in society than that. I believe it's pure bigotry and it's no different than a white supremacist hating on a black person, in my opinion, because the word weird is very vague and you'd have to specify what you mean. If you're talking about somebody that's into deviant stuff, then that's a different story. Okay, I'll let the word weird fly on that in that particular context because, obviously, if the person's a deviant or behaving like a deviant, then that just creates a whole different context altogether. But I'm specifically talking about just arbitrary weirdness, not like anything deviant or serious or anything, but just like I'm autistic. Autism makes me weird. It makes a lot of us weird, but that's also arbitrary. And it's, and I never know if the person is judging, if when they're using the word weird, I never know if they're using it in the context of someone who's being deviant or someone who's just arbitrarily weird. And so because of that, it throws me off. And 9 times out of 10, my brain is connecting weird with arbitrary weird. And so easily so, I end up getting offended when I hear a person using the word weird as though it's such a bad thing to arbitrarily be. Anyway, just thought I'd clarify that for a second. Okay. So, because at one point in my history, I actually had a psychologist tell me that she was qualified to be working with autistic adults because she had worked with autistic children. This was after I had questioned her qualifications to do such, and she didn't like that too much. Like, I'm qualified to work with autistic adults because I've worked with autistic children, so there. To which I responded, okay, then hand me a classroom full of third graders. I'll help them with their schoolwork for a few months to a couple of years. By your logic, that should qualify me to be a hired tutor on a college campus. They never read the diagnosis. I'm also not impressed when a person tells me they've worked with autistic children just because I mentioned that I'm autistic. Um, anyway, make sure you subscribe, like, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.